What's going on, everybody? Welcome to BridgingTheGeekdoms. I am your host, Robert Slavinsky, and for those of you who are new to the show or just haven't been here for a while, our show is set up pretty simply. The first 10, 15, 20 minutes of the show will consist of a few hot topics from the past week, be it reactions, reviews, newsworthy items to discuss. The rest of the show is then dedicated to a main topic for the week. This week, we're going to be talking about the DCEU and whether it should be rebooted or just left as is. And I know there's quite a few people out there who probably have a very, very opinionated uh, aspect on that whole thing. Now, while my extremely handsome co-host, Darth Yambo, won't be able to join us live, he will. He actually sent in some videos for some of the topics that we're talking about today. So I will play those throughout the show. That way he can get his opinion, his ideas, his thoughts on all of these topics out there. So again, this week's topic will be on the DCEU and whether the DCEU as we know it should be rebooted as a whole. If you are watching live, which we encourage everyone to do on a weekly basis, feel free to comment in the live chat on the topics that we are discussing to get the conversation moving. But how's everybody doing today? You know, we almost didn't have a show this week. I've been pretty busy. And then Ken, he was kind of busy. We thought that we could pull this together for today where we both were available. And we really thought it was going to happen. And then it fell through. But that's okay. We're going to move forward. And we're going to discuss these topics. There's some big topics that are out there. I think the one thing I want to talk about, which isn't a main topic, is the Harloff rumor or information. Christian Harloff, who has his own YouTube channel. He was once part of Collider. Then he branched off and did his own channel. He has a podcast called, I think it's The Big Thing or The Next Big Thing or something like that. He also hosts a Star Wars podcast called The Sith Council. I encourage you all to check out his channel and his show. Not that he needs any help. He's got a great audience and a great rapport with his viewers, but check it out. He's really good. I love his take on Star Wars. I've been listening to him for a number of years now when it comes to Star Wars, so I do like his takes. But he did actually say on his show the other day that he heard from a source that we're going to be seeing a Disney Plus, it could be movie, could be show, on Jedi Fallen Order's Cal Kestis, who is modeled after the actor Cameron Monaghan. Cameron Monaghan is from Shameless. He was also Joker in the Gotham series, or Jerome and Jeremiah. They never actually called him Joker in it. But I love this idea. I absolutely love this idea because that game was fantastic. I absolutely love that game. And I really wanted to see them bring him into the Obi-Wan show. Just the way everything was falling time-wise, I felt that it would be an excellent point to bring Cal Kestis into this show in some form or fashion. Obviously, they didn't, but that's not saying that they can't bring Obi-Wan into a Cal Kestis show down the line, which again, I think would be perfect. I'd love to see those two interact because from what we've seen from his story in the Fallen Order game, there's quite a bit of learning he still needs to do, and Obi-Wan would be a great mentor, even if it's just briefly in some capacity. So I would really look forward to that. So I hope that does happen. Again, this wasn't one of the main topics. It's just something that came up this week, and I wanted to talk about it in some form or fashion. There was also a announcement that we're going to be getting a Jon Snow Game of Thrones spinoff. And this one I'm not so keen on because honestly, look, I've watched all Game of Thrones and I enjoyed it. I did not really like the 8th season. Daenerys' story I was fine with. Jon Snow's story I was fine with, but just the buildup, the payoff was not good. And I wish it was more. But the story ultimately of Game of Thrones, in my opinion, was a Jon Snow story. Yes, you had your other main characters, Arya and Sansa and Cersei and so on and so forth. But to me, the two big main characters in that show were Jon Snow and Daenerys. And now Daenerys is gone, so Jon Snow is going to get a spinoff. And I don't know. I don't think Jon Snow is the right character to spin off here. Honestly, Arya had such a great arc in that entire show, and the way that they left it, where she was going off. I don't remember where it was she was going, but regardless, I would love to see her adventures and where she was going because she's such an interesting character. But let me know in the comments what you think of the Game of Thrones spin-off idea with Jon Snow. I'm going to check it out. I really like Jon Snow, and Kit Harington, I think he's a great actor. I can't wait to see him as the Black Knight in the MCU. But let me know your thoughts on everything in the comments below. Miss Marvel, I have yet to get I recorded my review, but again, I've just been slammed this week when it comes to family, and family comes first. Family comes first. But I haven't gotten to record it yet. I did like this last episode. I am going to say that I did like it, not as much as the first two episodes, but I did enjoy it because they're now finally pushing the story forward, and kind of now, after two episodes of discovering and introducing these characters, we're now seeing what the world is around them. And that's what this episode did. So I really did enjoy that. But look for that. I'm hoping to maybe get it out later tonight, if not tomorrow at some point. So keep your eyes peeled for my Miss Marvel episode 3 review. All right, let's get into the main topic here. Our main topics, or not main topics, our reactions. Our main topic is last. It's last. Let's get into our hot topics. I guess we'll say hot topics. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Kenobi season finale. That I did get up for my review up because I didn't want that to go too long without getting out there. And I talked so much about this show. I was enjoying it. And I gave them the benefit of the doubt that they would be able to properly close out these arcs that they started, that they were building with these characters. I really thought they'd be able to do it. And I don't know why I'm surprised, but I don't think they did it. I don't think they properly closed out these arcs, these stories, like they should have. Vader is where he was at the beginning of the series. Obi-Wan is where he was at the end of Revenge of the Sith, essentially. To me, we're seeing, it seemed like they didn't know where they wanted to go. They're like, we want to do an Obi-Wan show. We want to have Obi-Wan and we want him to face off against Vader. But what are we going to do? Man, let's just throw some shit at a board and see what sticks. And that's pretty much what happened here. And people were out there freaking out saying this is the greatest Star Wars since sliced bread. I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't. You are being, you're okay with the mediocrity here. This show, and I said this in my review, this show was made for me. This show was made for anybody who was a fan of the prequels, for anybody who was a fan of the character Obi-Wan Kenobi, a fan of Darth Vader. Yet, I was not pleased. And neither should you be. And I'm not one of those people. I understand Star Wars. There's going to be things that's made in Star Wars that isn't for me, that I'm not going to like. That happens. And it's already happened. I'm not a big fan of The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker. I get what they are. I like them for what they are, but they're not for me. And I understand that. I understand not everything is going to be for me. But this was down from the time they announced this. They were announcing this show because of me. And I'm not saying me. I'm saying people like me, people who grew up with the prequels, who were kids in the 90s and early to mid 2000s, who just lived and breathed Star Wars. And it did not deliver for us. It just didn't. And yeah, there's going to be some out there who say it did. But when you sit back and really look at this show and what it did not fulfill what it should have done. And that's a real shame. And don't get me wrong, there were scenes like this. I absolutely love this scene at the end of the show, at the end of the episode. I got choked up and I started to tear up a little bit because it was a beautiful scene. It was an absolutely beautiful scene. But then you have a scene like this that, okay, yeah, cool. We got Qui-Gon Jinn back for a brief one line where the CGI, look, I know that Liam Neeson is older than he was 25 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever it was. But come on. The technology they have, they could have de-aged him. Why is he looking older here? There's no reason for it. They should have used better technology or the technology to make him look better. He just does not look good here. I that's just a few issues I have. And then this scene. I mean, we finally got the hello there, which I'm great with. Like, I'm happy with. I mean, don't get me wrong. Who doesn't want to
Hello there.
who doesn't want to hear hello there? But it took us all the way to the end of the episode or the end of the series to get that. And whatever, okay, that's fine. And meeting Luke, he had to do that. That kind of stuff was fine. But the overall, like Reva, she was pointless in this show. There was legitimately no reason for her to be in the show. There was nothing for her in this show. But you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to let Ken here talk a little bit about his thoughts. So take it away, Ken.
Well, thank you, Robert. Everybody, it's good to see you guys. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it for this episode, but I felt like some of the topics were so engaging and interesting that I asked Robert if I would be able to contribute, I guess, virtually. COVID world has obviously taught us a lot in terms of using Zoom and stuff. So right to it. So obviously Obi-Wan's season finale, series finale premiered this past Wednesday, and personally to me, I gave it a 10 out of 10. I don't like to give that designation out a lot. I think that kind of covers the fact that there's no mistakes, when in reality there are some mistakes, obviously. But I personally thought that if there was ever such a definition of a series finale or season finale to be perfect, I thought Obi-Wan season finale was right next to there, perfect. I tuned in for Obi-Wan season finale and most definitely got what I wanted to get out of it. Regardless of whatever gripes I or you may have with the series as a whole, the episode as a whole, I thought it pretty much neatly wrapped up a lot of the plot points that looked like they were going to be left open. But we have Obi-Wan that was right back on Tatooine, and he will remain there, it seems like, until maybe another mission comes his way. And in my notes, I put parentheses C season 2. But as this series is listed as a limited time series for award nomination and everything, obviously it will have to remain to be seen whether we do get a season 2. But yeah, we have Obi-Wan back on Tatooine. Luke is safe. We have Leia return to Alderaan. And I believe the final scene that we get with Darth Vader was our opportunity to see Darth Vader really kill off any remnant of Anakin that was left within his body, spiritual body, force connections, anything, and really pledged his undying loyalty to Emperor Palpatine. I personally thought that they wrapped up everything pretty nicely. I felt like the action scenes obviously were up to par, although I still believe that Episode 3's Revenge of the Sith lightsaber battle was more intense, just given the plot background that we have on that fight. But as a whole, I thought it did its job. Like I said, I gave it a 10 out of 10. And to me, it almost feels like, in terms of Obi-Wan's greater place within the greater Star Wars universe, it almost felt like this series didn't happen. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing obviously remains to be seen. But from judging from what I've seen from a lot of people's reactions to it, it seems like the series was a win overall. And it changed nothing from what we've known in the past. And by and large, we learned a lot and very little at the same time. So we definitely got to fill in a lot of the gaps in terms of some of the plot holes that Star Wars fans like to point out in the original trilogy, and with just Leia's storyline as well. So I think it did a great job of plugging some of the questions we would have in terms of what happened in between Episode 3 and Episode 4. But I do think that it did not introduce concepts that were game changing, but I do believe that the series as a whole, for me, was an 8 out of 10, and I really enjoyed it from episode 1 through episode 6. And it told a story that a lot of us wanted to see, and for the most part, it told that story pretty well. So that's kind of what I think about it. Robert, I'll throw it right back to you and see what you think about it.
All right, well, thanks, Ken. Like I said, he's unable to join us today, so he was gracious enough to do a few videos here, and he's got a few here, so we'll definitely look at everything he has to say today. But yeah, I mean, I just went over my thoughts on Kenobi, and you're gonna find people that liked it, and I unfortunately did. I wish I did. Obi-Wan Kenobi is my favorite character, but I unfortunately just it did not finish well. There's moments of awesomeness in that show. The lightsaber battle I thought was decent. Wasn't as good as Revenge of the Sith, no, and I was expecting a little bit more, but you know, they even ripped off themselves. They took from Rebels that moment when Ahsoka slashes open Vader's mask. It baffles me why people were okay with that. But yeah, so that is our discussion on that. Ryan, hashtag I'm vengeance, hashtag it's DC Studios time. Cinematics. Hey man, we're gonna get to the DC stuff here momentarily. So as you see, he left a comment. So as soon as we get to DC, I will absolutely talk about that because I'm not completely far off from thinking what you think here. But moving on to the next topic, and for those of you who, if you saw Obi-Wan, leave your comments below, leave them down there. I want to know what you thought of Obi-Wan and as a whole, as a finale, all that kind of stuff. With that season 2, yeah, Kathy Kennedy was speaking with Entertainment Tonight, and she actually had this to say. Where's it at? Well, frankly, we did set out to do that as a limited series, but I think if there's huge engagement and people really want more Obi-Wan, we'll certainly give that consideration because the fans, they speak to us. And if we feel like, okay, there's a real reason to do this, it's answering the why then we'll do it. But we'll see. Basically, season 2 will happen if the fans want it. I mean, personally, if it's going to be more of what we just got, I don't want it. I'm serious. I don't want it at that point. I don't want in this case, I don't want the fans dictating if we get more because I want them to have a story. I want them to have something they want to tell. Season 1 didn't seem like they had a story they wanted to tell. And we got a mediocre story essentially, so that's unfortunate. This one here, I'm not going to talk too much on this second topic here, the second hot topic. The boys Herogasm episode is here, and I honestly didn't get a chance to watch it yet. I've been really busy, but we will do this because I know Ken has some things to say about it, so take it away, Ken.
Okay, so you're gonna begin now. Robert, I was not going to let you get away with quite possibly having a show that doesn't touch on the boys episode for the week. So I'm back. And this week's, I want to actually go back to last week. Last week's episode of the boys, I can kind of start to see that we are starting to enter Homelander's world, and we're just all living in it. I love the power change and the hierarchy power change. Thank you for The Rock for that overly used phrase, but I think the change of power has officially happened with Homelander, I guess, taking over Vought. I love that he supplanted Stan Edgar and kind of swiped the rug from right underneath him. Kind of falls in line with the character that we've been introduced to and have seen grown throughout the seasons. And another part of that episode that I really liked, touching upon last week's episode, was that I love that not each member, but I love that some members of the Seven are assigned their own sector of Vought. So I believe the Deep was in charge of security. And I just found it pretty fascinating that, what if a Justice League team and the conglomerate that was behind it disagree? And it kind of gave you a window into how it would work if Vought wasn't run by Stan Edgar. So yeah, I definitely think that was something really fascinating to see. Obviously, with this week's episode, the tagline has literally been "You can't unsee it," and that certainly lends true. Well, I'll hold the details for next week's episode just to kind of touch upon it, like I just did with the previous week's episode. Um, if people have read the comic books and have read the comic issue series Herogasm in terms of the source material, The Boys doesn't do Herogasm justice, but there are definitely moments in there where you're just like, what the hell? And the final battle between Homelander, Soldier Boy, and Billy Butcher is just amazing and just everything you want to see from this show and more. But that's kind of my take on it. I'm not too entirely sure if you've seen the episode yet, Robert, but I just couldn't let a weekly episodic program of Bridging the Geekdoms go without touching upon The Boys. So if you've seen it, I would love to hear your take. But if you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're doing. The name of the episode's Herogasm. Get on it immediately.
Well, yes, Ken, I did not get a chance to see it yet. Again, I've been really busy. I'm actually probably going to watch it tonight, though. So I'm looking forward to it. And we will touch more on The Boys next week. So if you're someone who's interested in The Boys, make sure you tune in next week. We'll cover thus far, the season thus far. We'll cover, what is that, 5 episodes, 6 episodes at this point. So definitely tune in next week. We'll definitely go into more detail with that. The next hot topic is Thor Love and Thunder's first reactions are coming out. And I mean, it's all the same when it comes to Marvel. It's great. It's great. It's great. And then you go and you watch it and you're like, is it though? Is it though? So there are some things that I want to highlight, such as unmissable credit scenes, and some are saying that it's the greatest Marvel movie yet. And I mean, you're going to keep getting that. I've said it multiple times on the show. I am not very enthused about the Taika Waititi's Thor films, so I'm not overly excited about this. Not to mention that movie does come out on my daughter's birth, or no, well, my daughter and my son's birthday, so I'm not gonna have a chance to see it that day. Maybe that weekend, but not the day that it comes out, at least. But sticking with Marvel, we do have something else that's really interesting, and I think a lot of people have been really interested in this. Is Phase 4 is near its end. Phase 4 projects have been a little more standalone in nature, making it more difficult to predict where things might be going as we approach Season 5 or Phase 5. And I've been saying that is probably the biggest problem with Marvel right now, is we have no idea what is going on. This Phase 4, has just been like a lull. It's just been there. Yeah, we've been introducing different characters, different things, but overall, this has been a very, very tame and lame phase. So while speaking to Games Radar, Kevin Feige revealed that answers are coming soon, though, possibly within the next few months. He said that there have been many clues already, which I kind of touch on this in my Miss Marvel review that I do for this week. So make sure you check that out whenever it drops. But he says, as we're nearing the end of Phase 4, I think people will start to see where this next saga is going. I think there have been many clues already that are at least apparent to me of where this whole saga is going. But we'll be a little more direct about that in the coming months to set a plan. So audiences who want to see the bigger picture can see a tiny bit more of the roadmap. So there you go. That is kind of big news right there in itself. But let's see here, because I know that Ken wanted to talk about it. So let's pull him in real quick and see what he has to say.
Why, thank you, Robert. So this is a topic that I stumbled upon while trying to do preliminary research on the notes for the week, and I found this interesting. I found the title of the article where I pulled this from, kind of the same questions I'm asking, and that's, what is the MCU's big picture moving forward? I know later on we're going to delve into the DCEU and whether their big picture has failed enough already where they need to just completely reboot it. But I found this topic really interesting, and I know we've touched upon it very briefly before, but the article kind of begins with Kevin Feige saying that Phase 4 is ending, and to me, that's just like, wow, really? I know Phase 4 began with WandaVision back in 2020 during the pandemic, and I remember watching that and feeling so elated that there's new content, new properties coming out, especially under the Marvel Studios brand and logo. And obviously, we as fans have noticed that Phase 4's projects have been a little more standalone in nature, which can make it more difficult to kind of see what I don't want to say end game because I guess it's a wrong choice word, but what is the end game of this universe moving forward, at least in the immediate future? A lot of people have pointed towards Secret Wars being directed by the Russo brothers, which I'm totally on board with. I know that they made comments when Endgame came out that the next project that they would probably come back for is Secret Wars. But obviously, with the way things unfolded with Scarlett Johansson, I'm not too entirely sure where they currently stand on it. But I do find it really fascinating that Kevin Feige kind of commented on this recently because I believe this is a question that kind of leans into the fatigue part of the MCU that we touched upon a few shows ago. And I know I've been caught with this, and I've said this openly to you, Robert, that if the project or the movie, if the Disney Plus show or movie doesn't give me an inkling toward what comes next, I find myself rating them higher. Well, whether that's the right, wrong way to go about these things, we could argue for eons, but I felt that Spider-Man No Way Home was a game changer. I felt that Doctor Strange could have been a game changer, but wasn't really the game changer that I expected it to be. So I'll leave it to you, Robert, to kind of elaborate on what Kevin Feige said. But for me, I do believe that this is going to be ending in two scenarios. So my first scenario is the ideal one, and that's Secret Wars. Personally, I think a movie of that stature still needs a little more time to build it up. In the immediate future, I actually would love to see a Secret Invasion sort of Avengers movie. I know that they're doing a Disney Plus show, which I believe could be used as a ramp up to a sort of Avengers movie. Maybe not the stereotypical Avengers movie that we've seen, but a group of heroes come together, kind of see that the Skrulls have secretly infiltrated the world's security points, whether it be on a political level, all the different types of levels that society has. And I find that really fascinating. And I hope that the show doesn't delve too much into it, so there leaves room for quite possibly a Secret Invasion movie that post-credit scene obviously could set up Secret Wars and stuff like that. But Robert, I'm interested to hear what you think. What movie, what project do you think we'll start to see the bigger picture, the bigger plan in terms of when everyone's going to come back together and stuff like that? I think it's a question that a lot of fans have been asking. I've been asking. I've been trying to scour my culture nerd friends to see if they had any inkling in terms of what they think. And for the most part, I actually got a lot of positive feedback for the Secret Invasion. How it's kind of similar how there was a first Avengers movie, second Avengers movie, and then we delve into the Infinity Saga, like the direct Infinity Saga. So I think maybe having like a Secret Invasion movie, then maybe seeing Kang get set up or seeing Kang, actually in reverse order, seeing Kang continue to be built up through Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantumania, through Loki season 2, and through whatever projects possibly could ramp up to that. But Robert, as I asked before, I'm interested to hear your take. What project do you believe will unveil the bigger plan for either Phase 4, Phase 5? Robert, off to you.
Well, that's interesting because honestly, I don't know. I don't. I thought that it was going to be Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I really thought that that was going to be the film that set up and gave us what we were going to be expecting for the next 8 to 10 years. Now, they are doing a lot and focusing on Disney Plus series. We have Moon Knight and She-Hulk and Miss Marvel, and we got Secret Invasion coming. There's a lot that they're focusing on in Disney Plus. So I do think that the Secret Invasion show is going to be a good starting point on where things are going. And I think that we're probably going to see a bit of that with Miss Marvel. I think Miss Marvel is diving into what we should be expecting moving on. That tiny bit that Feige is talking about, I think we're going to start seeing that in Miss Marvel by the time that series or this season ends. But overall, I think Secret Invasion is going to be where it really comes together, because we got Thor: Love and Thunder in 2 weeks. I don't know. I'm not looking forward to it. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull everything in and say, okay, this is where we're going here, because I think this film's going to be a much more personal film for Thor than being something that's about the entirety of the MCU. Whereas, Secret Invasion or what's going on Disney Plus, that seems like they're covering more of this world building, the dimensions. Then you have the God aspect and with Khonshu and Moon Knight and everything there. So I sit there and say I do think we're headed to Secret War, but is that 10 years down the line? Is that 8 years down the line? Or is that something that they're getting to quickly? We also do have what's going on with Loki. They've really they've started diving into this multiverse, multidimensional, these different gods, all that kind of stuff. I think that all has to come together at some point. And it just makes sense for Secret War being that culmination of all those things coming together. But yeah, I don't know. Let everyone that watches or is listening, make sure you comment. Let us know what you think. Where is the MCU headed, do you think? Where's it going right now? What do you think is going to be the project which highlights and shows us where everything's going? Let us know in the comments. Before we move on to our main topic here, I do want to do this. I want to say thank you to Spoiler Country. Spoilerverse is our home network, and without Spoiler Country, they're the ones who set everything up and got everything moving. Without them, we wouldn't be here right now. So here's a little ad from Spoiler Country.
Do you listen to podcasts that sound like this? Hey, welcome back to the Super OK Podcast, where our audio sounds mediocre.
Or do you prefer podcasts that sound more like this? Crisp, clear, fun, easy to listen to, and full of awesomeness? Well, then you should check out Spoiler Country, hosted exclusively over at Spoilerverse.com.
All right, so there, Spoiler Country, check them out. Great show. I know they're kind of doing something a little different starting in July. I think it's going to be their, 4th or 5th or 6th anniversary, something like that. I don't know. It's crazy. They've been around just as long as we have, so they are a great show. Make sure you check them out. You can find them on all your podcatching apps or spoilerverse.com. All right, let's get into the main topic here. The DCEU, the current state of the DCEU. Is this where we want it to be? Is this where they wanted it to be? Honestly, I don't think anybody can tell us where they wanted it to be, because the people who started it back in 2013, they're all freaking gone. They're gone. They're not there anymore. So what is going on with the DCEU? And that is a big problem, because you take a look at what Kevin Feige has created with Marvel and the MCU. And for the last 14, almost 15 years at this point, it's been nonstop. It has been absolutely phenomenal. One film after another, some hits, some misses, but if you get one miss, the next one is probably a hit. Or if that wasn't for you, the next one might be for you. It has been phenomenal what Marvel's doing. Whereas the DCEU has been, I mean, that's essentially what it is. It's quiet. There's nothing going on. And it started back in 2013. 2013, just think about that. 9 years ago, the DCEU started with Man of Steel, which in my opinion is a masterpiece of a superhero film, possibly one of the most underrated superhero films of all time. If it actually, it is the most underrated, but it started 9 years ago with Man of Steel. It went on and they decided, okay, this is going to be the starting point. They did Batman vs. Superman, and we know how that happened. It wasn't received very well. Suicide Squad, again, well, yes, it did win an Academy Award, which, that is it was for, I believe, costumes, but still, it was an Academy Award winning film. Then you had Justice League, 2017's Justice League, which was just an absolute disaster. You also had Wonder Woman, which was a massive success. It was a great movie. Yeah, the third act kind of gets a little wonky, but that falls on the management that was running Warner Brothers, or at least the DC side of Warner Brothers at that time. I'm not going to go through every single project that there's been since 2013, but we know how everything has gone. If you're a fan of DC, if you're a fan of these characters, of these potential stories, we know where it's been. You've had the Restore the Snyderverse campaign. You've had this Release the Snyder Cut campaign. You've had terrible films like Wonder Woman 84. I just, what is going on with the DCU? There's no vision. And like I said a little bit ago, it comes down to the people that started in 2013 are not there now. They're not there leading charge now. Right now you have Walter Hamada. Walter Hamada is the one that is kind of pushing for the DC universe, DCEU, mind you, and we don't know where it's going. Everything hinges on this Flash film. Everything hinges on this Flash film, it seems. You got The Rock, who is pumping up his Black Adam movie like never before. And the fact that this movie, Black Adam, is probably going to do relatively well in the box office. And whether or not it's as good of a film as The Rock is saying it is, I mean, he's been working on it for more than 10 years trying to get this thing made. Actually, more than 15 years, I think. So he's been working on getting this made. So if it's good, that's great. But if it's not, well, that was a waste of time. But let's say it's good. Do we want to wipe the slate clean with DC? We love Henry Cavill's Superman. We want to see him come back. But do we want to wipe the slate clean and replace him? Jason Momoa's Aquaman. He's great. Do we want to wipe the slate clean and get rid of him and cast somebody new? Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. Again, do we want to recast and bring somebody else in? So that's the question. That's kind of what we're talking about here is, there's so much good within the DCEU, such as casting. Casting has been phenomenal. The potential for some of these upcoming films look great. But to this point, the lack of vision, the just all over the place narrative, is it really worth trying to piece this back together? It's kind of like they have Duplo blocks and Lego blocks, and they're trying to smash them together and make them fit. Sorry, I have kids, so I automatically go to that. But that's really what it seems like. It's that round peg, square hole type of thing, or square peg, round hole, or however you want to look at it. It's like that. They've got the pieces, but they're not picking up and using them. They're using the wrong pieces, and it's not working. And that's kind of the problem with the DCEU right now. Now, Ryan, which he commented 20 minutes ago, he says, I believe DC films should start with the JSA and solo spinoff films. And that's not a bad idea. That really is not a terrible idea. And honestly, if you were to ask me, I think they have a perfect opportunity with Black Adam to just reset everything. Now, obviously, we haven't seen the movie. They could have things mentioned in that film talking about events that have occurred in the DCU to this point. But hopefully they didn't, because that would be a perfect opportunity to reset everything, because that is the JSA. You're talking about Dr. Fate. You're talking about Black Adam, Hawkman, the Adam Smasher. I mean, you've got these characters from the JSA that are going to be popping up in this. That would be a great way to start it off. And what better way than utilizing Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to start this off? That's my thing right there. Like, when I think about this, I think, what could we do to restart this? And I think utilizing The Rock and Black Adam to restart everything would be a good idea. Ryan says, as a man that loves BVS, Man of Steel, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Joker, Batfleck, and the Battinson, this fuels me. And that's interesting. I'm not a big fan of the Batman or the Joker film. I'm not a big fan of those. But I believe that there's a place for that kind of stuff. I've always said that the DC universe, from a film standpoint, should be a collection of different filmmakers, storytellers telling these stories. And if this filmmaker wants to play in the sandbox that Zach created, awesome. If this filmmaker wants to play in the sandbox that Matt Reeves created, go for it. That's what I think the DCEU should be. But they don't agree. And it doesn't look like it's going to go that route. But I think that would be a perfect way to handle everything, because you do have the crowd that loves what Zack Snyder's created. You have that crowd that loves what Todd Phillips made or what Matt Reeves has done. You have those that group of each group of people. Some of them, yeah, they intersect, but I think that's a great opportunity to do something different than what Marvel did, and that's a big thing. You have to do different than Marvel. If you do the same thing, if you do just the exact same thing, then you're 10 years behind. And not only that, but it's going to be boring and worn out. So why do the same thing? Why do the same thing? Our boy here, Ken, does have some to say here on this whole thing. So let me pull it up. And once he's done, I will get back into the discussion myself. So here you go.
I'm glad to be back for this last topic. This is the main topic of our show today, and it's something that has been very touchy-feely for me. Obviously, I got the Star Labs hat on, so we're about to get into the laboratory and see what's going on and see how we can fix the DCEU. Is that even what it's called, Robert? At this point, still hasn't been given an official designation. So that's kind of inkling into where the state of the DCEU is at the moment. But to reboot or to not reboot, you know, the DCEU holds a special place in my heart. It is the first franchise I actually got to see in its entirety. I saw the MCU in bits and pieces and then decided to do an overall rewatch when I was told that there are multiple movies that I haven't seen that connected to and explain the certain aspects of movies that I saw before. But the DCEU, I have been here since the beginning. It's been since Man of Steel 2013. And to say it's been a roller coaster of a ride is just quite literally feels like the understatement of like the century, I feel like. You know, the DCEU has promise, and to me, it still does have that immense promise. But for me, I'm going to go against, to answer the direct question, I'm going to go against rebooting it. And that kind of goes against the grain that I've seen. I think a lot of people have just kind of given up and have just been like, listen, reboot the whole thing, start over from scratch, cast actors that are either on the younger side, older side, that just give different interpretations and different character interpretations from what we've seen before. And while I understand that reboots, you know, can be positive, I'm of the mindset that they're not ideal and they should be implemented very sparingly. Reboots to me, while not the case with every single reboot, kind of admit mistakes, kind of admit, listen, it wasn't working with what we're doing. We're just going to go complete 180 and kind of reverse track and kind of do what we want to do. So why not reboot the DCEU? So my reasoning is, I have a couple of reasons, but my main reason is just you can go in any different direction with the MCU versus DCEU. It's pretty obvious at this point that the MCU is a global conglomerate that will just continue to churn out and churn out and churn out. While the DCEU has had its ups and downs and its needle marks for sure in terms of being up here, down here, up here, down here. But the one thing I could present to the DCEU that is advantageous to it rather than the MCU is its cast. We have the DCEU's universe has actors and actresses that are just quite honestly generational to me. Margot Robbie's interpretation of Harley Quinn, iconic. Ben Affleck's interpretation of Batman, whichever way you fall, Ben Affleck is a great actor. Henry Cavill's portrayal of Superman, Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, and Ray Fisher, even for that matter. And I even throw Ezra Miller in there, regardless of what's going on currently. And I know that you will be touching a lot more on that in terms of Ezra Miller's effect on the DCEU and whether it should be rebooted or not, because he has a significant part in that. But I just feel like for me, a reboot would be such a waste of talent. You know, I think I think just what makes the MCU great is their interconnectedness in terms of their universe, and everything is connected, whether it's directly, indirectly, and that's something that I still feel like is sorely lacking in DCEU. You know, watching Zack Snyder's trilogy and then watching some of the movies that branched off of, I guess, his idea and his original vision of the universe, you do see connectedness there or interconnectedness there, and that's something that's cool. You know, somebody that loves being OCD and having everything, you know, organized and everything. I think Zach had a plan for how this universe was going to shape out. And ironically, I feel like if given everything that we've heard about the Flash, and Rob, like I said, I'll leave that to you. I just wanted to talk mainly about the main topic at hand. It's crazy to think that if Warner Bros. Just left Zach to do what he wanted to do, at this point, it really does feel like we would be either at or near the Flashpoint movie, where basically everything was going to get reset anyway. He just wanted to tell his interpretation of these, I guess, Greek gods as superheroes, and from there introduce his vision, introduce the beginning, middle, and end of his team, and then just open the door for a new iteration of this team to come through. That's something that I feel like the animated universe does a really good job in, where there's a main continuity of animated films, but the most recent, I believe it's Justice League Dark, Apocalypse War, they let the Flash run back in time and reboot the whole universe. Like, yeah, they won, but they really lost in the end. So, and they lost a lot of the team members. So they just decided it would be best for the Flash to just reboot, do another Flashpoint, and hopefully the new iteration of that universe can get it right that time. And that feels like a real tentpole film that could cap off Zack Snyder's universe, and we would already at this point be either ushering in the new reboot or just hearing about it and stuff. So I think Warner Bros. Definitely dropped the ball on that, and they have extended this long death of the DCEU way longer than it needed to be.
All right, I'm going to stop him there. We'll get back to him in a second. But, you know, he does bring up a good point about the Ezra Miller thing of rebooting the DCEU. His shenanigans that have been going on right now. Zoe, shut up. Shh. Sorry, dog's barking. But the shenanigans going on right now with Ezra Miller, that's going to be damaging to the DCEU moving forward. His film was the one to reestablish, to relaunch the DCEU, and the fact that everything that's happened with him lately has really just put a bad look on the Flash movie himself and the DCEU as a whole. It's not looking good at all. But the thing that Kenneth is talking about here, he is really focusing and talking and discussing the Snyderverse. And I don't want to be that guy. So don't think I'm getting any joy out of saying this. The Snyderverse is dead. It is. It's dead right now, at least from a live action standpoint. It is dead. Keep your excitement up. Stay passionate. Keep pushing for it. Absolutely. But at this point, as of June 24th, 2022, the Snyderverse is dead. So to sit there and say, oh, we love this, this is why the DCU should continue to not be rebooted, well, we can always go back to that at some later point, and it can be an Elseworld story. I don't think we should be holding on to hope that what Zach was creating is what's going to help continue and push the DCU forward. I think that rebooting the DCEU is absolutely what needs to happen, because Ken sits there and talks about why waste this talent. And I brought that up at the beginning of this topic, is there's so much talent there. Do we want to waste it? Do we want to get rid of it? The problem is they're being wasted as it is. They're getting paid, yet being wasted. Or Affleck's Batman was completely wasted to this point. Henry Cavill. We don't have a second Superman movie with Henry Cavill as the main Superman. We don't have any Superman movie since Man of Steel. So these characters, these actors are being wasted to begin with. I think that this idea that, these actors are doing great in the role, we must keep them in there. You're going to be able to get good actors to fulfill these roles again. And this is coming from somebody who, like I said a little bit ago, Man of Steel is a masterpiece. It is the most underrated Superman film or superhero film ever. So I'm sorry, and Ken, I'm going against what you say here, bud. No, they need to reboot. It's the only way that it'll work. It's the only way that they'll be able to actually catch up to Marvel. If that's what they even want to do, is to reboot. You start from scratch. Just push everything aside and get a vision, get an idea, get a story that you want to tell. A point A to a point B, and get us there. And then do it again. You can keep the same actors and characters or not. All right, what else is Ken have to say?
But just speaking as the DCU as it's currently constructed, obviously it seems like a lot of changes are happening. Projects are being shifted around, canceled. For me personally, I think what they need to do is do a complete and total inventory of what characters they want to focus on. And the reports a couple of weeks ago were pointing towards Superman being a focal point, and I think that's the way to go. There's no shame in having your main characters be the driving forces of your universe. Marvel did it with the trio, so that was Robert Downey's Iron Man, Chris Evans' Captain America, and Chris Hemsworth's Thor. And while two of them were killed off, we're getting another Thor adventure in July, and I think that's doable in the DCEU. I think really what they need to do, what David Zaslav and his team need to do, is really embrace the multiverse. And when I say that, I say don't do what Doctor Strange did. They only embraced a slice of the pie of the multiverse. Embrace it completely. Label it the DC multiverse, the DC extended multiverse. Have different sections in HBO Max where it's like Snyderverse, regular DCEU continuity, the Burtonverse, all that stuff. I think that's something that they really need to do. And I feel like these companies, now that I guess the multiverse wars are coming on in terms of Marvel doing the multiverse and now DC doing the multiverse, really embrace that. Use your platforms that this is the main continuity, but hey, on HBO Max, we got a bunch of shit coming out on HBO Max that focuses on Elseworld projects and stuff like that. And I think doing this allows them to focus on multiple iterations of the characters. So I'm cool with the Robert Pattinson movie. I'm cool with the sequel. I'm cool with the trilogy. But I also want to see what Ben Affleck's Batman's doing inside of his universe. I'm not against seeing Michael Keaton's Batman, and we'll see what he's doing. I'm very iffy with that iteration of the character coming into the modern DCEU, but just touching upon other people's stories and different universes, you could do it in a way where it wouldn't have to be repetitive. It's kind of like Marvel is focused on their 616, Earth 616's story, but they showed 838's kind of universe, and I feel like that's something that the DCEU should do. Focus on just telling good stories, no matter what universe it's set in. And, publicly come out and embrace that, yes, we are doing a multiverse. We are doing things that are leading to a big event. I recently read the plot that was leaked for The Flash, and I'll keep the details that me and you spoke about between us, but there are things in there that are confirmed that are exciting, and I feel like if I'm not going to go into details about it, I don't know if Rob wants to go into details about it, but read the plot leak and then read the ending of it and tell me that using the Restore the Snyderverse movement as a plot point moving forward in the DCEU isn't something that's intriguing. So, like I said, I'm not going to delve into specifics what I said, but there's a certain scene that sets up a certain big event that happens in the DCEU. And at the time of recording this, I'm not too sure if Robert's going to delve too far into that. The leak has become public, and for the most part, it seems like it comes from a pretty, not reliable source, but somebody that knows the inner workings for sure. And, I just think that making the Restore the Snyderverse movement a plot point within the universe to try to get back. So Barry resets the universe. He thinks everything's great. Then there are certain things that are obviously not great. And there is a bigger threat coming in terms, you can make it Darkseid, you can make it just Crisis on Infinite Earths. And then I would try to find a natural and organic way that places these different iterations of character alluded to before, whether it's Robert Pattinson's Batman, just any sort of interpretation of the character and weave them into the main narrative in the DCEU that we've seen so far. So basically, embrace a multiverse. Find a way to naturally and organically weave these characters into your story. And for the Snyderverse fans, regardless of what Warner Bros. Does from here on out, the fundamental basis of this universe is Snyder and is the Snyderverse, because you could try to erase it, but the fans will always remember those movies as the starting baseline for this universe and how characters met each other and interacted. So I think that them taking a step back and just being like, listen, the cat's out the bag already. We've already gone a little too far into this universe to kind of just reboot it completely, I think is the best way to go about it, honestly. I think, while you can introduce shocking concepts at the end of The Flash with different iterations of characters in place of the main characters that we've seen, I think making it a plot point to bring those older characters back is something that can be done and can be done on multiple different platforms, cinematically, on HBO Max, and stuff like that. So I think that's where I stand in terms of the DCU getting rebooted. I'm against it, and I think there could be tweaks and adjustments made within these movies that can make it feel more in connection with each other, but also can just embrace the crazy side of the multiverse. So that's where I stand. I personally don't want the DCU to get rebooted. I know most people probably want the DCU rebooted just because it is a headache to read about this franchise day in, day out. But what do you think, Robert? Do you think Warner Bros. Discovery should get me on the phone today, tomorrow to discuss things? My schedule is more than open to speak to the higher-ups at DC to kind of figure out where this universe is going forward. So if you got a number, please let me know.
Well, there you go. Thanks, Ken. Yeah, like I was saying, I mean, he doesn't think it needs to be rebooted. I do. And what he's talking about when it comes to the Flash movie, I don't want to give that away. If you're somebody who doesn't want to read leaks or see leaks or want to know a major spoiler for the end of that movie, I'm not going to give it away. I've known about this for a number of months, and I've alluded to it a few times, but it's come out pretty big lately. It is interesting because he's right. The way that it sets it up, it almost takes that hashtag restore the Snyderverse and utilizes it as a plot point moving forward in the DCEU. And maybe quite possibly that's something that can be done. And as I said, right now, as of June 24th, 2022, I don't see the Snyderverse being restored, partially because of what's going on with Ezra Miller, partially because Zack Snyder's got a shit ton of stuff going on with Netflix and other projects he wants to do, partially because David Zaslav is busy doing other things and fixing Warner Brothers right now. They don't even have somebody to replace Hamada as the head of Warner Brothers DC properties because he just hasn't found anybody yet. So at this point, it is not going to happen, which is unfortunate. But I do think they need to reboot the DCEU. And it's funny because Ken and I were saying almost exactly the same thing, that you can utilize these multiverses, let filmmakers play here, play there, perfectly fine. However, I think they need to have one solid universe. This is the main universe that everything stems from. He's saying utilize the Snyderverse for that. I'm saying reboot, create a new universe that is the main, as Marvel calls their main universe, 616. You have to do that with DC here and have a main universe that you have a point A to point B to point Z, that you have a story to get to there. And if these filmmakers want to play in these other universes and even cross over from time to time, if it's possible, if they can fit it story-wise, I say do it. But I think that is the best move for DC right now, is to reboot, to just trash, not so much trash everything that they have going forward, because it's still there and they can still utilize it and call it part of the DCEU. But I think they need to just start from scratch and move forward at that point. That way it's a little more cohesive, that you can get the everyday moviegoer to understand what is going on. But with all that, guys, let us know in the comments what you think of this whole thing. Do you think they should reboot the DCEU? Do you think that they should do what we're saying, allow filmmakers to play in these other multiverses, but have a singular universe that is the main universe? We have Ken, who thinks that it should be the Snyderverse as the main universe. I think they should reboot and create a new universe to move forward with, new cast, everything. So let us know in the comments below. Make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe for more from me and everybody else. Let's see. Ryan does have a comment here. Ryan says, it's time for a mainline shared cinematic universe, and hopefully we can get back to the Snyderverse and get a rebooted universe. That's what I'm saying. Ryan, you and I on the same thoughts here. Thank you very much. But I agree. They need to get a main shared cinematic universe figured out for the mainstream audience, the regular audience, the movie-going audience, the ones who are taking their kids to the movies. That's what I say. But everyone, thank you so much for watching. It was great. I can't believe that I pulled this out today. Thank you, Ken, for sending in those videos. Let us know your thoughts on everything that we talked about in the comments. Please, just do it. Just do it. Do we want a DC reboot or not? What do you think? No. All right. Well, Gal Gadot, Wonder Woman says no, but that's because she's biased. She wants to continue her story. I'm an idiot. I'm a complete idiot. Anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Next week, I'm not sure what our topic's going to be. I'm not sure. Check out the channel, though. I did something a little new. I'm kind of doing some tech discussions. I have recently switched from Windows and Android over to the Apple ecosystem. So I did a video on that. I got a couple more videos highlighting that transition coming up on the channel. So make sure you subscribe and look out for those videos. It's kind of fun. I like doing that stuff. Plus, we got so much. We got reviews. We got news. We're talking about a whole bunch of pop culture stuff as well. So make sure you check out the channel for all that. You can find us on all your podcatching apps as well. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, so on and so forth. But with all that said, guys, I'll talk to all of you later.